Yeah, a month.
Tom, do they have that meeting every month then?
Yes.
Okay.
First Wednesday of every month.
First Wednesday of every month, okay. At 6 o'clock?
Okay, good evening. It's 6 o'clock. Brady, could you please give the invocation?
Thank you, Mayor. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for your grace that saves us from our sin. Thank you, Jesus, for you have made us holy through your sacrifice of your body once and for all. Yes, we ask for the abundance of your powerful ability to saturate this atmosphere in the midst of difficult decisions that this council may be facing tonight. With you on their side, there's nothing they cannot accomplish. Help us to remember that your grace is sufficient for all of us, sustaining us through every challenge and decision we face. Let us trust in your wisdom and guidance to accomplish your will in this city of Freeport. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Man.
Thank you. So now we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Clem,
Here.
Monroe,
Here.
Simmons, Parker,
Here.
Stacy,
Here.
Shadle,
Here.
Sanders is absent, and Sellers.
Here.
And if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Clem. And Alderman Clem, the meeting is yours.
Thank you. We have approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. First was by Monroe, second was by Sellers. Approval from the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting on June 10th, 2024. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public comments. We have one that has been mailed in to us, and we have Mr. Carroll that would like to talk. You were already up, Steve. Please come on up, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Okay, this is about agenda item number 12, hiring a lobbyist. It is being proposed that the city hire the lobbying firm of McGuire Woods at a yearly rate of $72,000 per year. Consider the fact that there was a water rate increase late last year, and just recently the council raised the city's sales tax by 1%. Combined, these two increases will take over $4 million per year out of the local economy. So where does the $72,000 come from? Is this tax and spend? Oh yeah. Now, what this is really about is finding public grant money for Freeport. If the council is dead set on spending $72,000, I would suggest hiring another grant writer. What we get from that is control and transparency. Speaking of transparency, are there other firms that are putting in bids for their services, or will this be another no-bid shell game similar to what we have for Farrell Graham? Euphemistically speaking, McGuire Woods is no different from other lobbying firms in that their client list is broad-based. So you have to take the good with the bad if you want to associate with them. When our elected leaders at all levels ignore the needs of their constituents, it creates a vacuum that lobbying firms then occupy. We pay them to do what our elected officials won't. I consider this process to be little more than legalized political prostitution. If the council decides to go through with this, please keep in mind you wouldn't be the first elected officials to use tax dollars for booze and hookers.
Thank you, Steve. Debbie, you have,
It's non-agenda.
it's non-agenda, okay, so we'll do it at the end. Thank you very much. Next is item number 7, presentation by Greater Downtown Freeport, their quarterly presentation to council by Andrea Schulz-Winter and crew.
And crew, thank you, yes. Good evening and thank you. Tonight's agenda will be covering highlights of our work on our key focused areas that were outlined in our strategic planning process. This information is also outlined in more detail in your second quarter report that you all received in your packet. Last quarter, we mentioned we would be hiring 2 new staff members. In May, Becky Eberly joined the partnership as our new Administrative Services Manager, assuming many of the tasks previously performed by Tess Dom. The partnership also approved our revised mission and vision and branding, which is outlined in the quarterly report. This month, we've publicly released, actually just earlier this afternoon, our new brand, as well as our economic indicator dashboard. The dashboard is 5 high-level metrics that the partnership will be tracking and hosted on our website for everyone to view. Over time, our economic development work will have a positive impact on these metrics, and the metrics include the level of private development investment within the city of Freeport and Stephenson County as reported by building permit data, job and wage growth for Stephenson County by quarter as reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, number of businesses in Stephenson County as reported also by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number of memberships in the partnership, number of partnership members, said another way, and hotel occupancy. As mentioned, the other individual who will be joining the partnership is John Bosco, who attended the city council meeting last week. He'll be joining the partnership later this month as our new development services manager. Key development events in the quarter were in April, the partnership was awarded another tourism marketing grant from the Illinois Office of Tourism. This grant award doubles our tourism marketing budget, expanding our reach to bring visitors to Freeport and Stephenson County. April 16th, we celebrated the end of our entrepreneurial boot camp called Base Camp with a pitch competition and awarded over $2,800, or $2,800, not over, excuse me, in prize money to winners of that competition. We hosted the Stephenson County Home Show, showcasing home improvement businesses and connecting them with the audience of local residents. In May, there was a groundbreaking for Beefaroo. This was approximately $1 million project that utilized the enterprise zone. And in June, an expansion of an aerospace business has led to the purchase of a lot at Millrace Crossing. Last quarter, we concluded our strategic plan. Our key focus areas are business retention and expansion, which includes our work around workforce development, new business development and attraction, marketing the region to prospective businesses and employees to show them the opportunities for growth and work here in Stephenson County. It also allows us to market the partnership services to existing and future businesses as well. Visitor attraction, which encompasses our tourism attraction efforts. Advocacy and policy, which is related to internal work we're doing tracking legislation that might affect local industries or communities. And we are always looking to build GFP's capacity by increasing membership numbers and maintaining a high membership retention rate. We continually, now turning towards business retention and expansion measures, we continually meet with employers to understand their issues and how best we can provide assistance. What we're learning is workforce shortages have eased, but open positions remain. But the dire shortages of workers has decreased. And depending upon the position, employers are seeing more applicants per job than they were a year ago this time. However, lack of childcare seems to be a serious issue. We will discuss this in more in depth shortly. We've been working with businesses in the aerospace industry to help them grow. We've coordinated site tours, meeting with officials and utility companies, which has resulted in the closing the deal to purchase a lot at Millrace Crossing. Though the park is outside the city of Freeport, in Stevenson County. This company would have considered leaving the area if a solution was not found locally. The enterprise zone continues to be a useful tool for renovation and expansion, and the tool enabled $1.2 million in investment and created or retained 100 jobs in this last quarter. And we have worked with or assisted 7 entrepreneurs. Talking more in depth around workforce solutions, feedback from our business retention visits, our manufacturing and HR roundtables has indicated that the lack of childcare is a key issue impacting our local workforce. Workers are stating lack of childcare is a serious issue and frequently results in second shift openings being hard to fill, workers calling off, and those wishing to return to work are unable to do so because there is no available childcare. So in this past quarter, we've coordinated meetings between employers and daycare facilities to understand the challenges and demands. In the span of a 60-minute meeting, innovative solutions to tackle second shift and Saturday childcare were discussed, and follow-up meetings are being scheduled. We've hosted a webinar with the Illinois Manufacturers Association for local manufacturers to learn about a program that can help cover the cost of training. Also requested from local businesses was localized wage data. So the partnership crafted a wage survey for common positions in companies of all industry sectors. Responses have been collected and staff is currently analyzing that data. Again, these activities highlight our responsiveness to the needs of our local businesses. The best way to retain local businesses is to help solve their workforce challenges. Businesses can expand when they have a talented and trained workforce. And the best business recruitment strategy is always having existing businesses expanding. Moving on to new business attraction. In the last quarter, we received 30 leads. 13 of those originated from a statewide organization called Intersect Illinois. We were able to respond to 5 of those leads and submitted existing sites and vacant buildings. 17 leads originated from local businesses and/or government partners. The breakdown of that was 10 new businesses and 7 existing or relocating businesses. We're continuing to follow up and work the 22 active leads. I'll now turn the presentation over to Nicole to talk about marketing the region.
Good evening. Just a highlight of some of the events that have happened. As Andrea had said earlier, when we talk about the idea of marketing the region, this is talking about marketing Stevenson County and Freeport to potential residents, to businesses who we think would find a great home here, as well as our services, the partnership services to existing businesses. So part of that is also retaining those businesses here, and we hosted the State of the City, County, and Township for our partnership members. We had 107 people in attendance. Thank you to the elected officials, the mayor, the county board chair, as well as township supervisor, sellers. We're all in attendance. We've received great reviews talking about key business issues in the city and the county. Dubuque Development Director Dickinson hosted an investor-only roundtable for discussing key development successes in Dubuque. Everybody has kind of seen over the last couple of decades how Dubuque has taken a turn, and we wanted to learn from some of their successes and maybe help overcome some of the challenges that they had along the way. That was really fruitful and feedback. Pretzel Fest was a beautiful day on April 27th. We had 4,800 people downtown on that day, and already great plans because next year that Saturday falls on National Pretzel Day, April 26th, so already planning for that. The very first Music on Chicago was on June 7th. We had over 500 attendees, and then of course, I know several people were able to make it last Friday for our second Music on Chicago, which was again fantastic, and we had nearly 500 attendees for that as well. In addition, we had 19 inquiries from businesses, site selectors, and other referrals from our existing partners about starting, locating, or expanding to Freeport and Stevenson County. And all of those are indicators of success in marketing the region, so that's why you see them all under this heading. As Andrea had said earlier, the partnership has been working, and we've kind of talked to you guys about how this is a pivotal time in our organization. We have new leadership. We thought a refresh to our mission and vision was important. We've really put the idea of our inclusion efforts front and center. And with that, we wanted to tweak or pivot, as you actually would have seen that logo do, 90 degrees to just a slightly refreshed logo for the partnership. So a couple of new colors and a very small tweak to our font. But the 4 ribbons that encompass our logo are really the 4 pillars of our organization. Economic development, business service, Main Street, and tourism all come together and intertwine to be exactly what we are, which is the collaborative agency with an unwavering commitment to this area. And with that, as you have seen in our strategic plan and our efforts, we have slightly refined our services, enhanced our focus areas, and created things to show measurable progress, not just to each of you, but to all of the constituents of Freeport and Stevenson County. So I do ask that you check out that dashboard, greaterfreeport.com/dashboard. You'll see more information on the rebrand, the mission vision statement, our strategic plan being rolled out to the entire community through our social media channels through the rest of July. In visitor attraction, this is a busy time of year for us. Our Tourism Partner Summit was held on May 15th. That is for our attraction and lodging partners. So it's actually a lot in nonprofits, but some of the museums, the hotels, Airbnb owners, attractions and events facilitators are all invited to look at the successes of 2023, to look at our campaigns for 2024, and really asked for their input. How do you want to be a part of these campaigns? How can we better include you in what we are promoting? The 2024 Choose Your Adventure campaign actually began last month, and it will continue through the month of September. We've had 2 influencers now who have come to our area, taken pictures, and absolutely loved it here. And then there are 4 new videos highlighting various aspects of staying here and eating here and really exploring Freeport and Stevenson County. Hotel occupancy in 2024 for second quarter was down slightly, and I'm working with our hotel partners to figure out why those weekends compared to 23 are showing that decline, so we can tackle that not just for next second quarter, but for the rest of this year as well. And I will pass it off to Bill.
Good evening. Well, I'm here to talk about membership. At the end of the quarter, we had 410 members. That breaks down to 262 basic members who pay our base rate, 105 not-for-profit or individual businesses run by individuals, and 43 partnership level members or government partners. These are businesses and government partners that pay a little bit more to support some of the economic development efforts that we're doing. 6 of those are new members. And we're pretty proud of the fact that we had a little over 96% retention rate. That means 96% of the businesses that started with us at the beginning of the third quarter were still with us at the end of the third quarter. And that's obviously very important. We want to keep serving those businesses. And with that, I believe we're open for questions.
Alderman Stacy?
Yeah. How much is a membership?
$275, yes. Is there basic? No. Thank you.
Okay. On follow-up.
Sure, would you mind putting your mic down, please? Thank you.
Tonight you're saying that you have 410 members. On your webpage, it says 300 and something.
Among the 410 members, there's 14 courtesy members. There's some subsidiaries. So the 300 is probably paid numbers. I'm not sure where that number is at, but it might be the 300 and something is the base level members and the not-for-profits, and then the 43 members on top of that are partnership level members. We often split those out. So the 300 and, I can't do the math that quickly, but 367 members would be our what we consider base level members.
Okay. For your state of the city, where you had 107 members there, why was the community not allowed?
Because it was a benefit of membership. It wasn't a public meeting. This was an event that historically, the Chamber of Commerce had put on, and I believe that was also a benefit of membership. And so as the partnership has evolved, we carried that event forward. And so that has always been an event that, when we've hosted, has been a benefit to our business membership. And so the topics that were geared towards the discussion was really on the things that have happened in government at those various levels towards business.
Okay, so when does the people who pays your salary have their opportunity for a meeting to hear what you have to say and to get their questions answered?
Well, I think that that's part of what we're doing here tonight. And I think when I'm out here talking, we get money from our government partners. And so I report to you on a quarterly basis, as I report to the county Planning and Development Committee on a monthly basis, and give quarterly presentations to the full county board. We also talk to our business membership on the daily.
Okay, you talking to us here tonight is not giving the community the opportunity to ask questions.
Alderman Stacy, please keep in mind that Greater Freeport Partnership receives their money from the city, from the county, and from the people that they mentioned that were invited to the lobby meetings and that kind of stuff. They don't get their money from the public, okay? So the people that they're reporting to are the people that fund them, okay? And if the people that have, other people that have differences or want to find out information can surely ask any one of the bodies or can ask them. But there's nothing that they really have to put out to the citizens of what they're doing. They have their quarterly report that's published, and she's brought up all the things. I just wanted to mention that we're the people that fund her, and they basically report to us.
Okay, we just went up in taxes in more ways than one. That says something.
So,
When we're giving $400,000, if the people have questions, they should be able to receive answers.
I said they could ask. They're free to ask anybody, but they provide reports. Okay, thank you. Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I'd like to know, I know you talked about the child care meeting.
Yes.
Who was all in what other organizations attended?
So the three largest center daycares, and they're all in Freeport, were Open Bible, the YMCA's Youth Child Care Center, as well as Amity. We're all there, yeah. And then we had various employers who were there from all different sectors, kind of giving input.
Manager Blair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On those lines, as far as the child care is concerned, do they have an estimate on what they're looking for in terms of total capacity in the community?
So the next step that they were going to discuss was the employer in the room who was really vocal about, actually there were two, in manufacturing, and that both of them right now, and have for some time, they've been up in production, so they've been running Saturday shifts. And so what they were going to do is take basically an employee poll to understand the number of children and perhaps the ages. So then that information could go back to those three daycare providers, and that they could kind of co-op. Maybe there would be a number of teachers from each organization that would want to pick up extra shifts on a Saturday, and one organization would then host the kids for that shift. So.
Alderman,
Go ahead.
either one.
Okay, on this picture here, it's like the groundbreaking of the Beefaroo.
Correct.
What did Greater Freeport Partnership have to do with that company even coming to Freeport?
Well, I think that you've posed this question in previous quarterly
Yes.
reports, right? So
Yes.
how we have served this investor group, who many of them are local to here, and they bought into this franchise to open a franchise right here in this location, is we helped coordinate meetings with the city and make sure that there was follow-up, there was some information about utilities. And then we helped them through the enterprise zone process those applications in a timely way that they could continue with construction.
So you have a license to do that?
The Greater Freeport Partnership is the one who's appointed by the state to do, to administer the, or actually, we have a partnership between all the governing bodies to manage the enterprise zone.
But as far as the business itself coming to Freeport, did the Greater Freeport Partnership bring this business to Freeport?
We made sure that they, when they made the decision to come to Freeport, that we made it easy for them to develop here.
Alderman Sellers, did you
Yes.
still have something?
Yes, I have another question on the business attractions and development.
Sure.
I know you said you have 22 that are open.
Correct.
And then we have 8 that's closed. So really was a total of maybe 30 altogether at one time?
Yeah, so we intercepted 30 leads that came into our office. And because there was 8 we couldn't respond to, we didn't have, and for the various reasons in that diagram, it says that we weren't able to respond to those leads. So then there was 22 still active leads, being they're open, we're following up, we're providing information. So yes, but when we get 30 in, we discern, I mean, we go through the process, we evaluate all of those to see if we can respond or not.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just could you fill us in on how many of the business leads have come through looking for shovel-ready sites within the city, and how many shovel-ready sites do we have?
Well, all 13 that we got from Intersect are always shovel-ready. And in addition to 7 existing business to expand or relocate here, most of those, I think almost all of those, were interested in an existing building or space to lease. And that's kind of a matchmaking process, right? So we're always happy to provide the spaces that we know of and connect them with the realtor or the building owner to try to get those fit. The new businesses, it's sometimes a long process in terms of the follow-up, the next steps. Sometimes they're starting off in terms of the new businesses, needing some support in the entrepreneurial services, connecting with financial institutions. Sometimes they're looking for a space to lease. And oftentimes, most of those were looking at existing buildings. So they were more smaller commercial enterprises, I would say.
Alderman Stacy?
Yes. The 2 new positions that's been filled,
Yes,
are those paid
correct.
positions? So how many paid positions are there?
7. So we're not adding any more staff. Someone had retired and we're refilling that position. And then when I moved from executive director, from development manager to executive director, that position hasn't been filled since November of last year. So we've actually been down a person for the better part of a year.
Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 listed, plus 2 is 8.
Becky is listed on there. Becky is one of our she is the newest staff member who's joined. John, who will be joining the partnership staff, has not started. He was here last week kind of visiting the community and trying to find some housing.
And do you have any minorities?
Yes, John is a minority.
Andrea, if I could ask a question, please.
Sure.
2 things that you mentioned I just want to ask about, and it's kind of tying on to that with the additional people. And one of the things that you mentioned, that membership was up, partner membership was up, which mean the people that pay more.
Correct.
Okay. Will that be able to handle the extra funds that you'll need for people?
I should caveat by saying, I'll step back. When we budgeted for 2024, we budgeted for a staff of 7.
Okay.
So actually, I think you could say that We've been running a little under budget because we have not been fully staffed since then. I've worked through the recruitment interview process as quickly as I could, but I have been, since November of last year, doing 2 jobs. So, and I'm trying to move through that process as quickly as possible. We're excited to have John come on board and kind of meet the community. I think some of you were able to meet him briefly at the end of the city council meeting last week.
2 other things, if I could. You mentioned, you mentioned the term, and I just wanted to.
Sure.
Lobbying partners. Actually, you didn't mention it. I think Nicole mentioned it. She's hiding in back. Lobbying partners. Was it at your meeting when you talked about having lobbying partners come in, and you talked, or maybe I missed it. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, I think we did talk, so in one of the key focused areas was advocacy and policy. And what I talked about there, we're not going to be performing any sort of lobbying functions.
Right.
But what the partnership will be doing is watching legislation, any sort of impacting rules that could come across that's going to affect enterprise zone, TIF, any of the industries we have here. We're not going to go out and lobby about that, but we're sure going to make sure that those businesses know. And most of those businesses, especially if they're large industries, they're already connected to an association that has a lobbying arm.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Sure.
And the last one is, on Millrace Crossing.
Yes.
The aerospace company, is that a to-do shortly type thing, or going to happen shortly?
The sale was closed in June. I believe that the owner will be in town the beginning of August. They're trying to get a building up before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you very much. Alderman Stacy?
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, on the website, the Greater Freeport Partnership takes in thousands of dollars from community companions. 25,000 community leaders, 17 to 24, 99.9 community advocates. What are these, different levels?
Yes, you're looking at different, so within partnership, there's partnership level members, and those are our larger investors. The 43 members we mentioned, there are different levels within partnership level giving. So that's the breakdown of, within a partnership level, there's multiple levels within being a partnership level.
Darren had his hand up. Let me get him. Go ahead, Darren. In case you had something to add.
Yeah, just a comment that I had. So, for the time I've been around here with the Greater Freeport Partnership, we've been talking about shovel-ready sites.
Yep.
So I wondered if something that might be beneficial to the city would be to, as people are making these leads and asking for, certain size sites, is that something that we could start trapping the size of sites? Because we know it's something that we need to address, so that gives us some foundation of if we do get some shovel-ready sites, what size we'd be looking for to meet the masses?
We absolutely do. We track that information on every lead that comes in. I would say that what I'm seeing trending upwards is we're looking at 50 to 100 plus acres. Some are over 100. Many are like 200 plus acres. But yeah, we can break down that data for sure.
And are most of them want them improved, right? With water, sewer, storm?
All of them.
Just wanted to ask real quick, the aerospace
Yes.
company that's
Yes.
coming in, what would the benefits be with workers and all those different things?
Sure. The company has been here leasing space in a different building. They have around 10 employees. They would be looking to, they wanted their own space and for future expansion. So their 10 employees will stay here. They're looking to double that in the short term. So I think they have longer term plans and they're looking at other areas within Millrace. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one last question. As far as the shovel-ready sites, how many inquiries have you received in the last 12 months that we couldn't fulfill because of the lack of shovel-ready sites?
Could or could not refill?
We could. How many did you have to turn away because we don't have or they were inadequate?
I can get you an exact number tomorrow, but I would estimate 30. Let's see, I had what I had last. We had 30 leads come in this quarter. We had to turn away 8 I would say if you extrapolate that by, let's say that's around an average 8 to 10 times, there's probably 40 that we had to turn away. So we responded to, we typically can respond to a quarter to a third of the leads that come in.
Andrea, could you do me a favor and go back on your slides to where
Sure.
you show the number of leads that came in, if you could? Okay, there you go. One of the things for all of us to keep in mind, and it happens all the time and has happened for years, your 13 over here, leads provided by Intercept Illinois, is leads that you have to deal with. They send them to you, you got to go through all the motions, whether you have them or not, whether you don't have them, fill out a whole bunch of information.
Right.
So keep in mind, there's a fair amount of time spent by Greater Freeport Partnership doing that as kind of an exercise, because many times what these places are looking for, we don't have, but you still got to go through all the paperwork and stuff.
Correct. We evaluate all of them, and we make sure that our responses, even ones where we might not meet every criteria to a T, I will apply. I will put an application in. I will put a proposal in, because if we're not doing that, we're not in the ballgame at all.
Alderman Monroe?
Quick question. How many acres have we added to property that we would consider shovel-ready ground in the last quarter?
I think the biggest, I can't say that we've added an acre to shovel-ready ground. We have no control over, the partnership doesn't own any of that ground, but what we are looking at is continuing to look at Lamb Road, and as infrastructure, different choices on infrastructure get made, that would open up a potential for future development along that corridor.
Follow up, please.
Sure.
Thank you. This is more of a comment than a question. This has been a problem for a while, and we know you don't control it.
Sure.
But what's important for the citizens of Freeport to know is that the people that do control it and could control it are not doing anything to move the ball along at this point. We're doing very little on that, and I mean, we're moving so slow over the last 6 years. It's been painful, and it's obvious that that's something that we need desperately, and that's those larger land sites, those areas with power, with water that's not floodable. And at some point in time, we as a community will have to either acquire that land and put the infrastructure in place, or we'll continue to just lose opportunity as it passes us by. But I know that's not your...
Decisions would have to be made.
They would. These are tough decisions. They're not easy to make because they're not guaranteed, but these are things that have to be done to advance the ball, and we're going to have to do that because the communities that have done that are seeing those businesses come there, and it's creating valuable jobs to keep us from having to raise taxes, as was alluded to earlier, and it would increase the tax base. So those are all positives that have to happen.
Alderman Stacy?
Yes, this is the second quarter. Can you tell me how many jobs you have brought to the city?
Cumulatively over the last 2 quarters, I'd have to check my figures from what we presented last quarter, more than 100. I don't know that. I think we were under 100 last quarter. Conservatively, I would say 150. Brought or retained. So a job not lost.
Okay. I would like that question separated. I want to know how many jobs has been brought.
And in the second quarter report, we did break that down on page 2. There's 100 jobs, 25 were created, 75 were retained. I can get you the figure for quarter 1.
Yes, and can you get me the information on where these 25 jobs were created at?
Sure.
Please and thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. You covered everything. We appreciate that very much. Thank you. Move on to item number 8, which is discussion regarding ordinance amending the City of Freeport Codified Ordinances, Part 16, Chapter 1610, 1620, 1630, 1640, Fire Prevention Code updates and amendments. Chief Miller,
Yes, thank you.
it's all yours.
Thank you. Now, I'm trying to be brief. Presently, we've adopted the International Fire Code and NFPA Life Safety Code from 2012, and we're seeking to adopt the 2018 version. And this would put us in line with what community development is trying to do with building codes for 2018. So I'm sure you're wondering why just now 2018 and not 2022, 24, or so on. So the simple explanation is within the fire prevention code and building code arena, they try to review and adopt every 3 years. So as you can see, there's an awful lot of information on here. Fire Marshal Brocious has been dived into this for a long time now. She's done a lot of work on this, and I consider her our subject matter expert. But what this essentially does, the long and short of it is, since 2012, the city has adopted through the municipal code various subsections which do align with the 2018 International Fire Prevention Code. So what this does is it aligns everything, eliminates redundancy. Things that we've already adopted have been struck out of the international code and has been retained by the city's municipal code. And it also spells out different appendices and sections that have not been adopted in the past. So it better spells out different requirements for suppression systems, hydrant locations, the water distribution system, a fire apparatus, access measurements for roadways and access roads. It establishes hazard rankings for storage and different types of classes and requirements, and also addresses suppression system requirements for winter conditions. So among those, again, there's a lot of information here, but that's simply what we're trying to do is become more current, which the 2018 is a largely current standard right now for our industry. So again, this has put us in line with what community development is trying to do with respect to their building codes of 2018 that they're seeking.
Do we have any questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Alderman Monroe.
Chief, why was it broken out that the Park District is allowed to burn large swaths of land compared to citizens in the community?
Sure, step on up.
They're not. Every time that they burn, they contact me and they have to obtain a permit. So just like the citizens do, if the citizens want to do burning large swaths of land, they have to have a burn manager and apply for a permit with my office. And they're really good. The Park District is about contacting me and doing that.
Can I follow up with that?
Certainly.
There's a formal criteria in which they must pass and submit requests, plans, and have crews, professional crews on standby for suppression if this were to get out of hand. That's something that we don't take very lightly. And when there is a prescribed burn, as we call that, she confers with me to get my official approval on whether we permit that or not.
Alderman Stacy?
Yes, it's funny that that has come up tonight because I received a phone call today from one of my constituents who was very upset that the neighbors were burning in their backyard. And so, did they have a permit?
Chief?
So that information was passed along to me, and Fire Marshal Brocious went out there immediately and inspected that address, walked the backyard. She found no evidence of burning. Later in the afternoon, I drove by there as well. There was no evidence of any burning. That complaint was unfounded.
They didn't say that it was happening then and now. They said that it had happened over the weekend and that there was a pile of recyclables being built up to be burned.
This situation's come up in the past, and the way we've recommended this be handled is at the time the violation or the offense is occurring, call us, and an engine company at a minimum will respond out there and not only address the offense by speaking with the property representative. There'll be some education involved too. Hey, maybe they weren't aware of what our requirements were. I mean, we're not going to go out there heavy-handed, but we do explain to them, here's what the city's ordinance states, here's what is permitted, here's what is not, and here's why. So it's
Okay.
more of an educational effort, and then, of course, we put the fire out if it is a violation of our local ordinance.
Okay.
Alderman Monroe?
Oh, thank you. Chief, how much in taxes does the Park District pay to the city of Freeport in respect for your services? Do you know?
I do not know. I don't know what the.
Does anybody in the room know?
Contributes to the fire department.
Does the park, so my point is to this is, Park District pays nothing to the city of Freeport for police or fire services, or do they?
We can look into that, but I don't believe they do. No.
Yeah, I know they don't. So my point is we're providing services, units, water, resources, trucks, everything else to go out and watch them burn the side of their hill. Meanwhile, a citizen in the city of Freeport can't do the same thing. It is so, and this is before your time, I had an interaction with the previous fire chief. The rules are so tight and restrictive that it makes it impossible for a citizen in the city of Freeport to have a fire other than a recreational fire, even if it were scientifically beneficial to the land that they were looking to burn. And the same opportunity to have a resource such as a fire engine or truck come out to their residents when they have that happen is not provided to them, even though they're paying the salaries and paying for the equipment and the gear that we provide. And that's one of my issues, and this has been something that's been a craw on my side for a while, is that we do a lot for the Park District. They haven't in the past had enough police protection, security, whatever they may have. That's gotten better over the last few years. But we also provide a lot of fire, ambulance, and other services to them as well. And, you know, that equipment's still being used, like it or not, and our manpower is still being used to go out and observe those events. And I know that if we got called away, we would go to the fire or the call that we have to, I would assume. I guess I don't know that, so I would have to defer to you. You're the expert. But, you know, it's something that I felt that we have been so restrictive that I think there's a little more latitude there. I'd like to see something in the future that makes it a little more opportunity to because we do have issues with ticks and other bugs and things like that in the city of Freeport. So just something to think about moving forward, but I'm just providing some feedback.
Sure, I understand. May I follow up then? So I think we're kind of speaking about two different things. So with respect to residents and burning, and they're burning yard waste material, limbs that have fallen down, leaves that they've raked up, things of that nature. What the Park District seeks to do is prescribe burns for vegetation, and that enhances future growth, eliminates the risk for runaway fires, and typically, we do not stand by on those. We require them to provide certified or trained people to do that. So we are not routinely sending our resources out there. If it gets away from them or they have an issue, well then, yes, we would have to respond. And this code will address her ability to cite them if they are out of compliance with our ordinance.
Anything else? Chief, I'd like to bring up one thing if I could, and this could be Manager Bloyer, and I talked about this morning, and Officer Hilby, it's in one, and I'll address this also to Wayne, because I think it's either in this particular ordinance or one that follows up. First off, was in the construction trade all my life, so I'm familiar with the 2012 to the 2018. You always run X number of years behind, and there's always things that you gain in that are very valuable to us as far as codes and working with contractors and all that kind of stuff, okay? Also, many times it's also costly to the consumer or who's using it. The one thing I noticed when I read through this, and I don't know if it was this one or the next one, I'll be truthful in that, one of them states in there something like this, not right to the point, but it's basically about sprinkling of buildings, okay? And it said that the fire chief had to say so on sprinkling of buildings. I believe it was in the downtown area. Could be someplace else. Rob and I talked and understand there's got to be something, but keep in mind there might not be a nice guy like you 5 years from now, and like Hillary, and all of a sudden somebody's got to sprinkle the building if they didn't. Because I know we ran into this one time after a fire in Canovas. There was a lot of negotiations going on about whether the building had to be sprinkled or not sprinkled. It would have been a matter of it opening or not opening. And we know this is a process that is very valuable to you guys as far as is the building safe, or for its tenants, you know, because a lot of people want to do things to buildings that aren't really ethical or don't really meet the code. So that was my only question, was, you know, kind of how do we handle this? You know, understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's something that should definitely be, this is the way we do it, period, and then we got something to budge off of. But I just have that question.
I understand your question, and this is something that Fire Marshal has coached me up on this. So if I get this wrong, please step up and straighten me out. So what that particular portion of the code addresses is our historic buildings. It also takes into account occupancy load. It takes into account if alcohol is being served, and then also the type of construction, the use of the building, as a place of assembly or as a meeting hall, or so it provides for other considerations.
Okay.
Yes, it has guidelines, but it provides for considerations as well. That makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
Alderman Monroe.
that was a great point to bring up. One of the buildings that I know in the past that's been brought up was Chicago and Stevenson at the corner there on the northeast side, as far as apartments go. We do have housing crunch in the city of Freeport, and low-cost housing, competitive housing for a portion of our population. And I know through conversation that one of the buildings down there was basically told they had to have sprinklers put in order to have that building transformed into an apartment building. And that cost for putting that sprinkler system in was greater than $1 million just for the sprinkler system. So kind of give us a little bit of your knowledge and information. And I think it's one of the issues that we've got with revitalizing downtown Freeport, how that works, how you go about this process, and why it's important, why we do what we do, I guess.
But to begin with, several factors come into play with this. What will the occupant load be? How many units are we speaking of? What's the existing fire resistive rating in terms of its construction, fire doors, egress lighting, emergency lighting? What's in place right now? So anytime you're speaking about taking a older building like that and rehabbing it and trying to make it a current dwelling, we have to look at what the existing codes are. So if you have more to add to that, then.
Yeah, so the general premise of the fire codes is that if an alarm goes off, say in this building right now, anybody that's awake and alert and able, what are we gonna do? We're gonna leave the building, right? Because this is an assembly place, most people here are awake and alert and they're able to leave. There's certain instances, like in a residential, where they're sleeping, or in some assemblies where they serve alcohol, that they're not able, because people that are drinking are not always capable of making the best decisions for themselves, and they won't flee, or they'll make a wrong decision. So there is an NFPA standard that's referenced in the 2018 International Fire Code. It's NFPA 914. It's compliance, and you can look it up. I always tell everybody, check my work, please, because that's part of my job. I go by the code books, and if you've ever gotten asked a code question to me, you get the code answer back, and I know Alderperson Clem has gotten a code question back from me, and I always say, check my work. I give you the actual code in reference. So NFPA 914 is historic structures alternative, it's compliance methods for historic structures. So that is one of the things that we can use as a fire department to determine if that building is safe for people to be in, whether it be a residential structure or an assembly, which would be like a bar or a church or something like that, or an educational place like a school, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Kind of.
And please understand, your question is just a portion of what needs to be taken into consideration for that kind of request. Certainly would be a building code concern and for them to address, and electrical codes and
how
all
much
the trades.
renovations they're
Right.
doing as well. If they're not renovating the whole, if they're renovating the whole building, that's the time to add sprinkler systems. It's almost new construction at that point, and they would have to follow the International Fire Code anyway, if it's more than 50% remodel.
Derek?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I've worked with Chief and the fire marshal as well on the city buildings that we've been working on over the last few years, and they've held the city to the same standard that they've held everyone else to, and we've installed the systems, the alarms, and everything else per NFP, whatever number you said.
NFPA
That's the code that you go by. It's pretty easy to look in there and regulate it.
One thing we all forget, just because it was an apartment 25 years ago, that doesn't mean it meets any of the standards today. You know, there were a lot of things done that shouldn't have been done, too. So, any other questions, or would we like to move this forward to the next council meeting for approval?
So move.
Second. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Vote passes 6-0.
Chair, could you repeat the motion in the second, please?
Sure. Sellers was the motion. Shadle was the second, 6-0.
Thank you.
No problem whatsoever. Discussion, or number 9, discussion of ordinance amending Building Code 2018 ICC additions, presented by Director Duckman. You're on.
Thank you very much, Alderperson Clem. So, similar to what Chief Miller has been discussing, the Community Economic Development Department is also looking to update its codes. So, give a little background here. This process had started in 2021, and at that time, the Building Commission, who reviews all of these proposed codes, goes through our Building Commission. At that time, in 2021, it was decided to move the electrical code up to the 2017 edition and the property maintenance code to the 2018 edition. And they were going to leave, their decision was to leave the other codes outdated to the 2012 version. And their thought process behind that was, it was during the pandemic. It was already, the cost of materials was going up, and they did not want to, their decision was not to move forward with a recommendation to up the code at that time. So back in January of 24, staff had a building commission meeting, and we were talking about updating the codes for containers to be used as restaurants, and I think many of you remember that. And at that time, staff approached the committee and said, we really should get back to updating our codes. And again, going back to the timing of the date, what was agreed on by the building commission was we started down the road of upping our codes to the 2018 version we're going to stick with the 2018 version. So this process started back in 2021, was put off for 3 years, revisited again in our building commission going back to January of 2024. And with that being said, we've got it to a point now where staff is recommending moving and upgrading our code to the 2018 version. So we're here to talk, I'm presenting it today for discussion, and the eventual hope is that this would move forward to a council meeting for approval.
Are there any?
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. Any questions for Director Duckman? So it's just similar to what we doing on the last one. We're moving it forward to.
That's the request. That's the request, is to move it forward.
Do we have a motion?
I would make that motion.
Okay, Shayla?
I'll second it.
Monroe? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Number 10, discussion regarding ordinance amending Chapter 1262 off-street parking and loading, presented by Director Duckman.
Thank you, Alderperson Clem. This is a little different here. And this is amending our off-street ordinance, and it's up for discussion today to talk about, and then eventually staff is looking to move this forward to a council meeting for approval. But essentially what's going on here is when it comes to private property and people building, our citizens building driveways, many of them do not seek a permit from the Community Economic Development Office. For one of the reasons they'll state is that they're not spending $10,000. So right off the bat, and our code states that if you're doing a construction project, essentially if it's under $10,000, you do not need to obtain a permit. So many people are avoiding the need for a driveway permit by stating in their permit application, or saying I do not need a permit application because I'm not spending $10,000. So that's the one item that we're seeking to address that with this change here to our ordinance. The second would be that the statement that it's not being used for off-street parking, which to me is a pretty loose excuse, but they're basically saying, hey, I'm not using this driveway for off-street parking, then I don't have to get a permit for it. And it was a way for contractors to try to find a loophole to avoid having to get a permit. So this discussion about driveways, and if you read through the ordinance, you'll see essentially we're spelling out that if you're using a driveway in any way, whether you're parking there overnight, some people like to park it in the garage all the time, some people like to park it in the driveway, right? Well, what this code is basically specifying and getting specific on is whether you actually park on the driveway or not, you still are required to get a permit. So that is essentially what this comes down to, is that if you're building a driveway in the city of Freeport, you have to get a permit, it has to be inspected, and it has to go through the process. We're basically eliminating the two loopholes that many people have used to not obtain permits for their driveways.
Alderman Monroe.
Thank you. Question for you. So if I'm adding on to my driveway, does that still need a permit?
If this ordinance passes, yes.
Follow up.
Sure, follow.
So there's a 1% tax applied to putting in a basketball court now.
Yes, if you want to look at it that way. We're calling it a permit fee, correct? I know where you're getting at. But yeah, you're looking at it as a tax. It's a permit fee. So,
Alderman Parker.
I'm confused on it. So if I'm parking in my driveway, I need a permit because it's off-street parking?
No, and I want to clarify here. So what would happen is somebody comes in and will say, I don't need a permit for my driveway, because the way the ordinance currently reads is it's covered in the off-street parking. So some contractors are coming in and saying, well, I'm not using it for off-street parking. I'm using it as a thoroughfare to my garage, which is the off-street parking. So I don't need a permit. And my staff has struggled with that, and we sought legal counsel and said, well, we can address that by basically saying, if you're using a paved surface to go from your off-street parking to the street, you have to get a permit. Basically, it's it's getting a little into the weeds, but basically what it's saying is we're closing off that loophole that you don't have to get you have to get a permit whether you're using your driveway to park your cars at night or whether you're using it just simply to get to your garage. You got to get a permit for a paved surface.
Director Duckman, question for you if I could.
Sure.
This has always been a pet peeve of mine simply because of, and I think it's a combination with Chief Schenberger over here. We've got everybody parking in their front yards from here to here, you know. Will this particular change help that situation?
I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's. I don't think they're correlated. I don't think they're connected. Right. So if you park a car in your front yard, that's a code violation for not parking on a paved surface. So we're gonna send you a fine and put you through the court hearing and send you you're in violation anytime, whether this passes or not. You cannot park a car on an unpaved surface. Like that exists whether we pass this ordinance or not. So basically this is a different situation where what we're saying is that, for example, a neighbor would call and say, hey, my neighbor's putting up a driveway and you know what? Now it's dumping water into it's shedding water into my yard. Or, you know what? I don't think it's up to standards because it's cracking. Or they dumped, they're storing their stone, they spilled a bunch of stone into my yard. And you know what? I'll say, well, it's not $10,000, so they don't need a permit. And that really drives and should make our constituents upset and angry because they're basically saying our contractors can come in here and do work that's not up to code, that doesn't meet standards. And so what this is trying to say is if you're building a driveway in the city of Freeport, it's going to be inspected and it's going to be done right. And we're going to know about it because what's going on right now is there's contractors that are trying to bypass the rules. And then when people complain, the neighbors complain, I have to unfortunately tell them I can't help you because they don't need a permit for this.
Alderman Sellers?
How much is a permit?
Exactly. It's the 1%. 100. If it's $10,000, $100.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to just point out that a lot of the construction we've done in the last several years, we have dealt with all kinds of defective driveway approaches, sidewalks, broken driveways, all kinds of things like that. And I don't know if Darren wants to chime in on some of the examples, but one of the issues is because there is really no permit process for somebody doing work less than $10,000, we end up with substandard work in the right-of-way. So somebody goes to do the driveway, they don't put in a sufficient base, they don't build the depressed gutter correctly, they don't put in, they don't install the approach correctly. We end up having to deal with those on the back end, and so at the end of the day, we want those contractors to put it in right the first time. And Darren, if you wanted to jump in on that, I'd appreciate it.
I think this is just trying to bring up the driveways on the private side of the right-of-way to a standard the same as what we expect in the right-of-way when we do construction. I work with Ben Fritz all the time. Every estimate that we see for a driveway miraculously is $9,800, no matter how big or small it is. So they purposely are, feels like they're purposely doing that not to have inspection, which then ends up with substandard product. Or we also have contractor license requirements within the city that they have to be a licensed contractor in order to do the installs. We end up with people coming from out of town that are not licensed when we don't do the permit process. So, and I would throw this back just on Wayne's example of $100 for a $10,000 driveway. That doesn't even come close to covering the city's cost in the permit process or the inspection process. It would just be a dent in making sure that those items are done to the city standards everywhere, so we have a better quality of product that lasts longer throughout all of town. And we've been working in that nature for all of this year. The issue is that this direct code on the private side of the residence does not meet the same statute as what we're doing on the right-of-way side. So we're trying to make it even, that we get a good product for the residents all the way through.
Alderman Parker?
So the inspection, I just had a driveway put in a few years ago, and it was under $10,000, and I didn't have no permit, but I also had Helm do it. So I mean, it's done perfect in my opinion. How do we prevent it and make sure it gets done perfect? They have an inspection ahead of time, and then they come back and inspect afterwards? Okay.
That's correct.
I'll throw another a good example in. Don's is a great example because we just did work on Ridge. When his driveway was done, the curb in front of his driveway was defective, and that contractor chose to remove that curb, which is, no offense, it's the worst thing we could have done for the street because it creates potholes in front because there's no drainage curb any longer. And so when we fixed the street this year, we put that back in front. But if we would have had an inspection, we would have made them put the curb back in at that time. So.
I'm sorry. That would have increased the cost of the driveway then?
Correct, because by our code and ordinance, the ingress and egress of a property is owned by the homeowner because the city of Freeport doesn't drive over the curb. The homeowner does when they make their breakthrough to their driveway. So that piece of the curb is part of your ingress and egress of your driveway.
Alderman
No,
Mendoza?
I think we need an investigation. No, I'm one of the reasons this one that bothers me a little bit is because everybody on our side of town, well, not everybody, a lot of people on the west side of town, northwest side of town have a lot of courts. And we see piles of salt like this in those courts. And I know it's not supposed to happen that way, but that salt, we see it breaking down the concrete. It doesn't last as long, so it adds a significant amount of cost. And I've had 2 driveways now that people have approached me about, well in excess of $20,000, which means it was in excess of $200 and something for the application fee. So it's why I'm mindful, and it's not just to pick on people, but we've got a lot of lawbreakers like Don out there who's taking his. I'm kidding, Don. Smile. So but you know what I'm saying,
yeah,
right?
What we've seen is a lot of the houses in Freeport were built in subdivisions, and the curbs were broke out instead of cut out. And when they're not cut out properly, that creates an odd gap between the driveway, and then the salt and the water goes in there and starts the pitting and popping. And that's, if you drive up and down our streets, the most failure is in front of driveways. That's generally where we see it. And so when people replace their driveways, unfortunately, that's the time to fix it. It's much easier to fix from the driveway side than it is from the street side, and we just end up with bigger problems in the street when we try to address that.
Yeah, it's the intersections and right at the driveways. I 100% agree.
Anyone else? Do we have a motion to move this forward to the next council meeting?
So moved.
Second. Sellers and Shadle? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0.
7.
7-0. Excuse me, I can't count. I'm sorry. Item number 12, continued discussion regarding hiring a consulting firm for lobbying and for.
No, you skipped 11.
I skipped 11. I'm sorry, guys. I'm an amateur at this. Number 11, yeah, got to move those up too. Let's just put an arrow in, okay? Continued discussion regarding ordinance 2024 amending chapter 464 public nuisances presented by Chief Schenberger.
Thank you.
Chief.
So back in May, I proposed to amend the public nuisance ordinance, chapter 464, to include violators who didn't have a valid driver's license, driving while suspended, and driving while revoked as vehicles that we could tow and impound under that ordinance. It was up for second reading at the time, and it was the feeling of the council to move it to the COW for further discussion tonight. So I'll open it up for discussion.
Do we have any discussion on item number 11? Does anybody want to make a motion to move it forward?
So move.
Sellers?
Second.
We can still have discussion, don't worry. And Shadle, did you second that?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Stacy.
Is this the ordinance we were talking about, at the discretion of the officers?
About towing the vehicles? Yeah. And after I said that, I should clarify. So vehicle gets stopped, let's say, and let's say the person or the driver doesn't have insurance on the vehicle. So it would fall under it right now, as it's written, that vehicle could be towed and impounded under the public nuisance ordinance. The officer then has to contact the shift commander. So the shift commander then will determine, based on call load and things that are going on at the time, if that vehicle can be towed. So the shift commander, the sergeant, would give authorization, yes, go ahead with the tow, or no, we can't, we're too busy right now, or that's how it is. But generally for these offenses, they are towed if it fits under that ordinance.
So it is at the officer's discretion in communication with the shift manager.
The shift commander, it would
Commander.
be, yeah, the shift commander has to give, that's our procedure, the shift commander has to give the approval to have the vehicle towed.
And that's how it currently reads.
That's just our procedure. The actual ordinance says, find it here in amidst all my paperwork.
Chief, didn't mean to interrupt you. Chief, wasn't part of it also to add 3 sections to it?
Yes, that's correct.
Just so we know they're out there also.
So the wording of the ordinance, when it comes to towing the vehicle, it says notice of, this is 46405, notice of impoundment and record of towed vehicle. Whenever a police officer has reasonable suspicion to believe that a motor vehicle is being used in violation of this chapter, the officer shall provide for the impoundment and towing of such motor vehicle, except as provided in 46404, which would, as I talked about before, if a vehicle, either the register owner has to be there if it's never been in violation of any of these ordinances, or if it has and the owner has received warning, then it can be towed. So that either the owner has to be present for it to be towed, or it has to have been stopped before for one of those violations, and then that vehicle, the registered owner has been warned about that. But it does say in the ordinance as shall, but so that the officer shall provide for the impoundment and towing of such motor vehicle.
Any other discussion? Okay. We've already got a motion on the table by Alderman Sellers and by Alderman Shadle. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Motion passes.
Oh, no.
Okay. Huh? Okay, we'll take her out. That's fine, no problem. Okay. Clem, aye. Monroe? What's that? Go ahead, Debbie.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
No.
Simmons, Parker. It's absent. Stacy,
No.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sellers is absent. Sorry, taking notes. So we currently have a vote of 3 to 2. Can the mayor vote on this?
But it's already.
We just took a vote while I was in the restroom, and it was not held for me to come back and vote.
What is the ruling on that?
So the vote was taken. At the time, there were 2 absences here, but the vote was taken. You had a quorum. You conducted business. So and this particular motion failed 2-3.
I'm sorry, I did not follow that.
So,
You want me to do what?
so the vote was taken because the item was discussed and the vote was, we were ready to move to a vote, and the vote count was 2 in favor, 3 against, correct?
Yes.
So this motion to move it forward failed.
Okay.
So does that mean the ordinance just dies now?
So it doesn't get the necessary vote to move it forward back to the council agenda.
At this time.
It's just done right now. I mean, it's not, unless.
It's not, I mean, and if someone wants to right now, who is on the prevailing side, wants to make a motion to reconsider the vote, now that there are more people here, so if someone that voted on the prevailing side, which was a no vote, says, I make a motion to reconsider this in light of the fact that there are more people back now, so I want to put it to a fuller vote of the council, and that motion to reconsider passes, then you guys can bring it right back and re-vote. But you need someone from the prevailing side to make that motion to reconsider. Yes, Debbie.
May I? Excuse me. This has already gone to second reading. You cannot take final action at a committee of the whole.
Correct.
What is our point of voting?
This vote is to put it back on to the council agenda. This is all this vote is for. It's not to approve the ordinance. It's just to get it
back on an
back
agenda.
to
Okay.
council agenda to finish the second read.
And so it failed to go back
To the council.
to the council for second reading.
Correct.
However, next month, if someone that voted no chose to bring it back, it could.
So if somebody next month or next week? Or
Next month.
you at the cow?
I mean, I'm just using, for example.
So if someone wanted to bring it back with no further changes, usually if you're going to reintroduce something that failed, there's usually got to be a change to it in order to just bring it back.
Okay.
Or a significant passage of time or something like that. Now, if the will of the council right now is to say, you know what, we have 2 extra people that had stepped out, they're back now, and you guys want to put it to a vote, you can do the motion to reconsider right now. Or you can wait.
Wait.
Or it can be altered, correct?
Excuse me?
No.
The ordinance can be altered and brought back.
If there was going to be a tweak, then it could be brought back sooner, I think, yes. But then it would be back for first read, and because it's a different ordinance at that point.
What do we do with the unfinished first reading? Or unfinished
It
second reading?
basically dies at this point, because, it was referred, it went to first,
Okay.
it went to second, it was referred back to committee, and now it's not making it back out of committee. So,
I think Alderman Parker had a question.
I'll make a motion to reconsider.
unfortunately, Alderman Parker, you can't make the motion to reconsider. It has to be someone that was on the prevailing side, which was someone who voted no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion, move on to motion, or item number 12. Continue discussion regarding hiring a consulting firm for lobbying and public affairs advice for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we brought this McGuire Consulting proposal back to committee for discussion. At this point, the appropriations process is over for the 2025 year budget season. So staff has no other remarks regarding this one. And if it's the council's pleasure, we can start the process over again and look for 2026 appropriations with new proposals.
Discussion. Alderman Seller.
I guess I would like to bring it up for more discussion because I think that it is something that we should look into. Just because they're done with the 20, you said 23, 24, or 24, 25?
25 appropriations.
Because really, if you think about it, we don't know what's coming down the pipe that could really help our community. And I look at it as, I know a lot of times we say, well, we're not Rockford, or we're not Beloit, or we're not whoever, but we look at other communities that are being successful with using lobbyists to get them money. We use their best practices. And that's what I think that if it's something that's working and communities are thriving from using this as a tool, I think it's a tool that we should try to use their best practice and not try to create another wheel, but we use the wheel that's already out there and try to get, I know that it was also mentioned that, to get another grant writer or whatever, but we need somebody that is down there in Springfield that knows the people that are out there making these decisions and opening up these doors to help our community get back on our feet again and thrive again. And I think this really would be a great tool for us to use as a community. That's my advice.
Alderman Clem?
Alderman Stacy?
Yes. My biggest turnoff with this was the fact that we were told there was 3 considerations, and I asked for the proposals of the other 2, and it never happened. And it just kind of made me feel like, was there ever 3, or was there just 1? And I think my bigger question would be, because we have Duckman, I'm sorry, I can't find your total job description, but it's pertaining to the economic development. And if we had a lobbyist, would we consider dropping the Greater Freeporter Partnership, $400,000 a year, to take on a 2-year contract of this nature to see where they could take us?
Okay, so several things on that. There were never 3, there were always 2, and you got that second proposal at the last committee of the whole, so that you received, never a third. We never had a third person in there, not sure where that came from. And this is about connection. This isn't about a grant writer. This is about people that are connected at the state and federal levels. Director Duckman is not connected on state and federal levels.
No.
This is totally different, totally different. And so if it works in other communities, it isn't about ignoring the needs like was said in public comments. This is about making the best use of all of our tax monies. And if we can spend $72,000 a year and get 10 times the amount, I mean, there's no guarantee. What if it's 20 times the amount? What if it takes a couple of years? It's still a good investment. It's proven.
Okay. So I can follow up?
Oh, and can I finish your thought on the GFP? They don't have inside connection on state and federal levels either. Their focus is on, well, you heard all their focus, so they don't have those inside connections either.
Okay. No, they don't. And the 3 came from, I was told, McGuire, Senator Tammy Duckworth, and the one Rockford uses. That's where I get my 3.
Okay, and that's not correct either. Senator Duckworth is not a lobbyist. She's a senator. And Rockford doesn't use, Rockford gave me some suggestions. So
are you
Rockford
telling
doesn't
me
use those.
Duckworth did not come up?
No, Senator Duckworth is not a lobbyist. She does not know. She's not a lobbyist.
I'm sorry. Sherry Boutros.
Bustos, she's a
Bustos.
former congresswoman.
Yes.
And she now works in a firm called Mercury, which you got that proposal.
Okay. I did not get the proposal like this. This is a proposal.
That's what we got from her.
I did not get a proposal. I received copies off the internet. It was
No,
not.
he handed it to you. I watched it on the council meeting.
Papers came around the table to me that night.
That's correct.
But it was not a proposal that said how much.
Yeah, it
and
said
what-
$10,000 a month on it. I have a copy in my office as well.
Okay. And the Greater Freeport Partnership came up because of all the money we're trying to put out to make money. We got to get rid of something if we're going to try something new. $400,000 is a lot. And I know Duckman does not work at the state level. That's not what I'm saying. But he still, in his title, can bring in monies, according to his job title.
Alderman Cheadle?
I think ultimately that's exactly what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring in more money. We've got Director Duckman doing his job. He's doing a very good job. We have Fair Grant doing a very good job. We have the Greater Freeport Partnership doing their job. If we can add one more to the mix to bring in even more money, why would we not do that?
It is budgeted. You approved it in last year's budget.
It is budgeted. Yes. Okay.
Because it's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. And we want to look at other cities and what they're doing. But even as a city, who's to say they're not run different than the way we run? That's why it's working for them. We can't just look, we got to look at the whole picture here. And just picking out a part and wanting to jump on the bandwagon and move forward, it's not always the answer. It's not ever the answer. We got to know what we're dealing with. And we don't. As a city, we don't. We're hurting. And to keep putting out money to try and make money, when do we just stop and sit back and look at the big picture?
Alderman Cheadle?
I think we've, as a city, been sitting back and letting the world kick our tail for the last 50 years. That's why have the water and sewer rates that we have to try to catch up on infrastructure that was neglected. It's why we had to implement a 1% sales tax to get some kind of funding for roads. We can't just sit and take it. We're trying to go out, we're trying to get something done, we're trying to generate some revenue so that we can get projects done. And this is, the gentleman that was here in his presentation is the one that said that in their history, this is not unproven, but as a total, they generally see between 10 and 20 times the investment on returns. That was said on the floor.
Alderman Stacy.
I don't think other people are kicking our tails. I think we are kicking our tails. And
Could you repeat that, please? I didn't hear you. That's the only reason I asked.
it's not other people kicking our tails. We're kicking our own tails. That's why we went how many years and nothing was done with our streets. And now we find ourselves where we're at today. But I'm not going to get into streets. And yes, the gentleman that came and spoke to us, he did say that. But he also said something about only having, I asked him about how many businesses did he have. And I think he said something about in the public 6. So he really didn't have a lot of experience as a firm in working with people like us. I would have to go back to my notes on a different sheet of paper. But even that night, I questioned his knowledge to really be effective with us because of his lack of experience.
Anyone else have anything to add? Alderman Monroe?
Thank you. I think it's a much, much bigger problem than just getting a couple of lawyers to go to Springfield or DC or wherever else to build relationships. It was brought up that it's not the role of Mr. Duckman, and I agree with that. It is the role of the city manager in a managerial form of government. And one of the things we've done in the last few years, and we can all agree, when we went from the mayoral form of government to the city manager form of government, we essentially doubled, if not more, our annual salaries for those two positions. We have a responsibility to the citizens to spend the money as best we can and figure out ways to get funding coming here. One of our U.S. representatives has brought money here, and several of our state officers, I don't want to, have brought nothing here, not a penny. So going out and spending $80,000 to go and get those people to do their job and to bring money back to the city of Freeport is basically spending money to wine and dine. And this is how money ends up in the pockets of people around the state of Illinois. We've had this problem for far too long. This go and here, we'll just throw money at a problem, that'll fix it. It doesn't fix it.
It doesn't fix it.
At the end of the day, what fixes it is holding people accountable to the positions that they have. And if that means we have to make changes in November or in March of next year, we have to do that. As a citizenry, we have to stand up. But it's our responsibility between now and then to hold people accountable. And right now, that's not happening. And we did approve it last year, but it really wasn't what it was sold to be in the budget process.
Nope.
It was sold as something much, much different. And that's part of the problem. When we're approving these budgets, there's not enough fencing there to keep the project within the guidelines of what we approved. It was pitched as one thing, and it's turned into something else. And I think the question and the issue that some of us have is that we need to be able to have a manner in which we can hold somebody responsible. You know, and we saw it with the GFP tonight. They came here with a plan. We asked them for metrics to show that they're doing their job. They've given us those metrics. They've made them transparent on their own website. And I think with this type of money, when you're spending $6,000 a month, you have to have those guidelines in place to hold people accountable. And I think that's what everybody's asking for. And I'll ask the city manager as well. I mean, what are we doing for ourselves before we spend $6,000 to go out and make this effort to get more money here? And I'll give you guys kudos. You worked with Representative Sorensen to bring a boatload of money here. And my point is I have faith in the people that are running the city, because if we didn't have faith in them, we would all be looking to get rid of certain people, right? So we have faith. We're asking for you to go out and do the same type of thing with state senators, state representatives, U.S. senators, all of those people. And it would be great to see others involved in wanting this region to win. That's all.
I'd like to add something if I could. I think if I remember right, the citizens of Freeport voted in a managerial form of city government. We didn't have anything to do to pick it. The manager's job is to run the city. The manager has put money into the budget to put in for a lobbyist, for somebody to go out and seek funding for us. And all he's asking for is, let's go out and do this and let's see if it works, if it's a thing to work. I discussed this with two former mayors that we had, because somebody had asked me, have we used this in the past? The answer to that is yes. One has used it and used it very successfully. The other one had not, but he is currently working for a company that lobbies with everybody all the time and highly suggests it. So, you know, to turn around and blame it on somebody else is not really the answer, and if it was put in the budget for this, it was put in the budget for this. Alderman Shadle?
I feel like this is exactly how it was presented in the budget. You shake your head no, but that's exactly how it was presented. Thank you.
Anybody have anything to add? Does anybody want to make a motion to move it forward?
So moved.
Second.
Hang on just 1 sec. I just want to clarify exactly what we're moving forward then right now. So, city manager, are you looking for just general, when the time's right, when the next cycle comes around, that they be engaged, or are you looking for approval to actually move forward their engagement now?
It's the council's pleasure. At this time, there's still other funds that McGuire could go after. If you were to approve this proposal, I can go back and get more proposals from different lobbyists if that's the council's prerogative. However, I just wanted to mention that McGuire is the firm that Rockford did start with, and then one of their employees went to work full-time for Rockford to do this type of work. So with that being said, I'm open to council's pleasure. If you want to move forward with this one, it's still possible to engage in the process, or if it's council's pleasure to go out and get new proposals, we can do that as well.
So then I'll ask to Alderman Parker, you made the motion, correct?
Yes.
Was your motion to move forward with McGuire then?
Yes.
Okay. And who was the second? Shade. And Greg, I'm sorry, who? Greg, is that your second then to move forward with McGuire? Okay. All right, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands what the motion is then. So, okay, fair.
And I would have one question, just, it might be a clarification. So if there's more discussion on this to come up when it comes to the floor, is this coming back to us as an ordinance, as a resolution, as a whatever, so we know how it's voted on next time, if it's voted on in one vote, two votes, or whatever?
It'll be coming back as a resolution.
Alderman Stacy.
Okay, so now you're saying that it's not too late in the year?
Alderman Stacy, all I simply said was the appropriations process is over with the state of Illinois.
Okay, so why would we be moving forward with something if it's over with for the state of Illinois this year?
Because there's outside federal funding that could still be pursued, and we could be in a good position for 2026 appropriation.
Does everybody understand the question? Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
No.
Simmons,
No.
Parker,
Aye.
Stacy,
Not at this time.
Shadle,
Aye.
and Sellers.
Aye.
4-3, the motion passes.
So, and as half the council has voted in favor, I would call for the mayor's vote on this.
You would
So
like
we-
the mayor as well. What say you?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-3.
Moving on to item number 13, discussion of fire engine invoice by Chief Miller.
Yes, thank you. So next week at the council meeting, you'll be presented with an invoice for approval by means of of a resolution to approve the final payment for the replacement of our 31-year-old fire engine. Back in September of 2022, council approved the purchase of a new fire engine, replacement fire engine, not to exceed the sum of $900,000. At that time, council approved the purchase of the base model of the fire engine that we've selected for a sum of $862,170.88. That was for the base model, with the understanding that we would be visiting that vehicle as a committee to determine what else would be needed to match our similar models within our fleet. So the truck committee met and we selected some items to add, and we also selected some items to remove. The items to be added were with the understanding this is to be within reason, to standardize our fleet, and to make it so all vehicles are the same in terms of the compartment configuration. So that the bill to be presented to you next week is for the final bill for the manufacturer of the engine through McQueen Emergency Vehicles for Pierce Fire Apparatus. The remaining balance is $22,692.88. So I'm bringing this up tonight for open discussion, my explanation of what was added, and also an explanation what was deleted to save some of the cost on this vehicle. So things that were added to the benefit of the department and our personnel was in the compartments a tool board, swinging tool board where our fittings and appliances are attached to. Also to better maximize compartment storage and to prevent back injuries, pull out shelves that tip down, so our extrication equipment will be on there. It's a heavy piece of equipment. It'll tilt down, so it'd be at a chest level height for pulling off the equipment from that shelf. Because we've transitioned to e-tools, e-extrication tools, meaning battery-powered tools, saws, drills, things of that nature, each external compartment will have a double duplex electrical outlet. In other words, four outlets that we can plug in our battery chargers into each compartment. Also, an added bonus is electrical bus bars within the cab. So instead of running wires throughout the entire cab, we've got a power strip behind the officer's seat, behind the driver's seat. So all of our additional equipment, such as our thermal imaging cameras, flashlight, hand lights, those are all wired directly to that. So those are also incorporated. Probably of most importance, we also added a cold package to this vehicle. What that means is when sensors recognize a very cold temperature, it'll send a heating element to all of our gauges, our our gauges for our water coming in, water going out. Each discharge port will have a heated strip to it. So how we learned of that mistake, or how we learned that that is of importance, was several years ago, we had to send one of our trucks out to Galena for a large rail accident where several cars were off. It was a major task force response. It was so cold, each of our gauges froze. So once they do that, they're not calibrated, they won't operate anymore. There were 10 gauges that needed to be replaced at $500 each cost. So we've taken steps to ensure that that will not happen again in the future. Also, we invested in a frame rust resistive coating. Typically, you'll just get a standard steel frame rails, or you can have them galvanized dipped, or in this case, they recommended a special paint coating, which is applied while the rails are apart, and then they're fused together, and that makes a rust-resistive coating. Also, what was added for durability was on the pump panel, so where the hose goes in the side and comes out the other side, we've applied Linex covering to that. So it'll be chip resistant, it'll be rust resistant. This is based on our previous engine showing signs of wear and tear in these specific areas, so we've taken steps to ensure some additional longevity to those areas. What was removed from consideration, again, our additions were considered reasonable and cost-effective. What was removed was a hydraulic ladder rack for $13,000. That's where the ladder goes on the side of the apparatus, and then hydraulically, it's placed above the truck. We removed that. It's just an internal ladder storage now. Additional Linex areas was removed because of cost considerations. There's also what's available, it's called a blacked out package, so all the steps, the grill, the rear step was all black. That offered some stain and rust resistant capabilities or qualities, but we found that to be cost prohibitive. We said, no, we're not doing that. And then lastly, we had provided for flip down steps, and also on the handrails where you would grab to climb into the truck, they were backlit, similar to our ladder tower. That was an excessive cost too. We removed those additions, and we just have standard straight steel rails coming in. So we still are underneath the $900,000 not to exceed level, and at this time we're about $16,000 below the not to exceed level. So I just wanted to bring this up if there's any questions or concerns. So next week when you see this invoice come across your tables, you'll understand what the history is behind that.
Does anyone have any questions for the chief?
Not really a question, just a comment. I appreciate the work that you guys put in to doing your homework on this, forming that committee and asking the guys that are on that engine, not that you never served on an engine, you don't know what's going on, but you're not in the field today. And to have those guys put forth their point of view really streamlines to get the right piece of equipment, as evidenced by what you were saying. And thank you for that.
Thank you.
Alderman Monroe.
Chief, I'd like to second that. I think it's a really good thing. I'm also would like to thank you that it's only $22,692 more, because when we moved it forward, I had great fears it was going to be $100,000 or $200,000 more, and that means a lot that you guys looked at it that hard. It came down to paint color, painting in certain areas, the black package, and things like that. That is a good thing. I think it's something that the city of Freeport needs. We've now refreshed the ladder, now another engine, the 3 ambulances. We're in pretty good shape moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. And again, just so it's clear, this last invoice is for the truck manufacturer. So We do have another invoice coming, but it's for around $6,000 for our two-way radio, including installation. By us outsourcing that locally, we save money on the radio itself and also the installation. This manufacturer wanted more than $2,000 just to run a cable from the front cab to the back where the pump panel is. Our local radio installer said, no, I'll do that as part of the install, save your money. So that's going to a different vendor, but again, we're still $16,000 under the maximum cap.
Appreciate your explanation.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Do we really need a motion to move this forward, or we'll just see it next week? Okay.
Can we clarify, are you guys comfortable enough that we'll just put it on the consent agenda? Or do you want it up for discussion again?
It's up to the council. Yeah, absolutely. If people are just comfortable with this being as a part of the consent agenda, showing up for approval still. Okay.
I am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 14, quarterly updates on city goals established by Social Justice Committee, presented by Manager Blair.
The Social Justice Committee recommended measuring a number of metrics to assess the city's progress in diversity, equality, and inclusion within the city government. In the second quarter of 2024, we continued to recruit for open positions across all departments. The police department currently has 6 openings, the fire department currently has 1, and all other departments have 7 openings. The police department, the female workforce represents 38% of the department's employees, and the minority workforce accounts for 19%. The female workforce numbers increased by 1.5% from the first quarter baseline, and the minority workforce numbers increased by 1.5% during the same period. In the fire department, the female workforce represents 4% of the department's employees, and there are no minorities currently represented. The female workforce numbers decreased by 2.6%, and there was no change in the minority workforce compared with the first quarter baseline numbers. Our objective for both departments is to increase female and minority employment by 5% each year. Recruitment efforts include partnerships with community leaders, clergy, and advertisements across various media, including targeted Facebook ads. All other departments, the female workforce represents 34% of all department employees, and the minority workforce accounts for 13.7%. The female workforce numbers decreased by 6 from the first quarter baseline, and the minority workforce numbers increased by 0.7 as compared with the first quarter baseline. Overall, we have 56 females and 23 minority employees out of a total workforce of 196, equating to 28.5% female and 11.7% minority representation. The second quarter held steady compared with first quarter baseline. In the table provided, looking at our June 30th, 2024 numbers, in the police department, we had 23 employees in March, 23 female employees in March, and that increased by 1 to 24 female employees in June. In March, we also had 11 minority police employees, and that increased by 1 in June. And then total employees remained the same. Fire department female employees, the first quarter we began with 3 female employees. In June, we lost 1, and we had no change in minority employees. So our total employees are increased by 1, from 45 to 46. All other departments, female employees, we started in March with 32, and we ended June with 30. That's a reduction of 2. We also started March with 11 minority employees, and we ended June with 11 minority employees, with a total increase of 7 employees, total count for all other departments. So overall, all other department female employees, we started with 58, reduced to 56 in June, and in minorities, we started the quarter with 22 and increased that by 1 to 23. So total employment in the city is 196 employees. In the police department, we observed an increase of 1 female and 1 minority position in the second quarter of 2024 compared with the first quarter. The fire department, we observed a decrease of 1 female employee in the second quarter of 2024 compared with the first quarter. All departments observed a decrease of 2 females and no change in minorities in the second quarter of 2024. The second quarter police department recruitment efforts included advertising for open positions in the National Minority Update and the Equal Opportunity Employment Education Journal, targeting minority employees for employment and education. This quarter, a local minority candidate submitted an application for employment. The candidate was offered an opportunity to participate in a ride-along and received a recruitment letter with a $50 gift card funded by the Recruitment and Retention Grant awarded to the city in June of 2023. Additionally, the police department had 2 summer interns, 1 female and 1 minority male, both of whom are now candidates for the current hiring cycle. The second quarter fire department recruitment efforts included advertising for open positions in 26 different areas. For the first quarter, for this quarter testing cycle, we have expanded our outreach to 42 areas, including mediums targeted at minority audiences and a published recruitment video. To date, the fire department has received 21 completed applications. Among these applications, 2 are African American females, 1 is a Caucasian female, and 2 are Hispanic males. This represents 23.8% increase in diversity of applicants compared to our previous recruitment efforts. City staff in the outreach and in other city staff organized and attended the East Side Cleanup event and represented the city at the Pretzel City Fest during the second quarter of 2024. Our goal for nuisance and building inspections is 5% or a 5% increase from the previous year. In quarter 2 of 2024, community development accomplished 1,732 inspections and is on track with the annual goal. This included 2 house demos and 3 garage demos in this quarter. In boards and commissions, other boards and commissions saw the addition of 1 minority appointed to the Planning Commission. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the city manager? Hearing none, we go on to public comments, agenda or non-agenda items. Listen to 3 minutes per person. We have one to be read first. Debbie, could you do that, please?
This was mailed in from Freeport Noon Kiwanis. Good evening, council members. Please read this letter. We, the Freeport Noon Kiwanis, fully support the Pretzel City Skills Enhancement Program and would like to see it renewed through the end of 2024. This program's invaluable service to our community is only matched by the opportunities it provides our youth. Please renew this program to continue helping improve our roads and to provide job opportunities for our youth. Sincerely, Freeport Noon Kiwanis.
Are there any other public comments? Wendy? Please state your name and address.
Good evening, council. My name is Wendy Pearson. I live in the 1300 block of Chicago Avenue. It's very rare that I agree with anything that Monroe says. But today, I'll say that I do agree with some things he said. When we start looking at hiring a lobbyist, we're looking at cost. When I totaled up the cost of $6,000 a month, that's $72,000 a year. We're paying somebody to go to Springfield to lobby for us. We're talking about reputation and their abilities to speak with individuals that they know in Springfield. We have people right here in this town that have lobbied for Chicago Teachers Union, specifically for a school to keep it open. Who knows just about everybody that's sitting in Springfield and everybody that lives in Congress, that's in Congress, in Washington, D.C. So I don't think we should be going that route when we still have difficulties in this town that aren't being fixed and that we're 1%ing us to death on. Roads, 1%. Monroe talked about money being allocated and not specifically used for purposes. This was the reason that we did not approve of the 1% increase, because of the fact that monies have been specified for certain things and later on used for something else. So I agree with Monroe on those issues. In regards to individuals who are working here, I'm going to give you some kudos. I'm not just here to beat you up. In 2008, I stood right outside of City Hall, down the street before they tore down the old one. And I asked the press, who were interviewing me at that time, to walk into City Council, to walk into the banks, to walk into the corporate offices, to walk into our police station, to walk into our fire department, and see how many people sit there in a position that look like me. And I can tell you that the numbers were very, very low. So, when I look at the increase in females, and I look at the increase in minority hiring in this town, I have to say that part of that is based around a program that is put out there that is training our individuals on what they can do and giving them the opportunity to do it. The program I'm talking about is the one that Ronaldo, Bobby Bush, and Jim over at the Boys and Girls Club has done and has been very successful. I have an issue with the ordinance, Chief. And the reason I have an issue with the ordinance in regards to individuals driving without license and having their vehicles towed and possessed by the city of Freeport is the mere fact that there is a possibility that this
Time has
could
well
be
expired.
racially involved. And we've had those issues before. So we have to make sure that that doesn't happen if this ordinance passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Tommy? We don't go back and forth on public comment. If you want to say something afterwards, you're more than welcome.
Dwayne Dickerman, we got a problem here. What's this about this Holiday Inn?
Well, it has a lot of vacancy, and but nobody's staying there at the moment. So it has some code violations, and we're working on it, Tommy.
I hear they're going to have a meeting on the 11th this month. Somebody said.
Okay. Yep, that sounds about right.
Okay. Alderman Stacy?
Yes, I just wanted to announce that this Friday, July the 12th, 3rd and 5th Ward will be having a community meeting, not a town hall meeting. 3rd and 5th Ward will be having a community meeting at the Freeport Public Library at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Alderman Monroe?
Thank you. I just wanted to pass along that the Freeport Area Church Cooperative put a message out saying that the pantry will be closed until next week due to some sicknesses within the pantry. There's a phone number on their Facebook page as well as on a couple of the other apps in town. Just wanted to pass that along. And I'd also like to, pass my condolences along to the family of Tamara Reuter, who passed away recently. A very young lady who's got a good family and has put a lot into this community. And I think it's, it's important that, we recognize people for what they do, and sometimes they leave us before their time. But prayers and thoughts going out to her family and friends as well, and to those that put on the red coats and represent Freeport very well.
Are there any other public comments? Please state your name and address.
I don't know about the address, but my name is Marcus Signer, and I came today to ask the chief, can you please stop having your officers falsely arrest me? They come to my house, say I have a no trust. I try to talk, but I don't receive calls back. That's why I have to come here. Police come to my house, say I don't have a no trespassing at my house. It's false. They know it's false. If you do have a no trespassing, that isn't even an arrestable offense. That's a Class B misdemeanor. So you can't be arrested for it. They still arrested me, took me on the way to the jail, told her, you're making a mistake, let me please talk to the sergeant so you don't get in trouble and doing a mistake that you shouldn't be doing. She refused to let me talk to the sergeant, and I was entitled to. When you ask for a sergeant, they usually bring one. She took that away from me and still arrested me for no reason. If you go on judiciary, there's no pending charges for me. Maybe like traffic, maybe something like that, but no criminal. And why is it that officers in Freeport can arrest you and for no reason there's no repercussions? Never, like, when is it gonna stop? I mean, I know you ain't gonna answer, you know, you're like Trump, you know, I know. But can you please tell your officers to leave me alone? And there is an officer who put about 7 charges on me, and they all been dismissed. And this officer thinks, since he works for Steve Stovall at the sheriff's office now, that he can come to my property and harass me as much as he want with my kids out there, and falsely arrested me in front of my kids crying too. But nothing gets done in this community. So can you please have your officers, and I will have Holden, can you please keep him off my property? I know he's a cop, they get to do kind of what they want, but I am afraid of him. Hass, Holden, and the sheriff that works for the sheriff's department, who just transferred to the sheriff's department from your force. Please and thank you.
Any other public comment? Accept a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. All in favor, signify